Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the iGnite webinar brought to you by Benge DC. My name is Blesmo Benge, and I'll be your host for this afternoon with my co-hostess, Shinki. Let me start by thanking everyone who has joined us for the previous webinar. I know the last one we had was on Wednesday when we spoke about the auction system and how SMEs can participate in the auction system. This afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we are also going to touch base on a topic that is quite profound within the entrepreneurial space. But maybe let me start by challenging the attendees this afternoon. Maybe you have seen, maybe in your neighborhood, you've seen a block of flats that is obviously not been recently built, or maybe just in a road along on your way to work, you've seen there's a new substation that has been there. And half the time you'll be saying, but that opportunity, I was thinking about doing this 2 years ago. But someone is coming and has done it. My question to you this afternoon is, why didn't you do it? Is there anything special that the person who has built that block of flats, who has built that substation, who has built that fast food outlet has? What is so special about that person? Maybe if I was to bring it closer to home. When you look at your one of the richest men here in Africa, Aliko Dangote, we know his first foray into entrepreneurship was when he started selling sweets in primary school. Maybe that is where you learned entrepreneurship. But for some, maybe you're already in your 40s. Does it mean that you can't be an entrepreneur in your 40s? Maybe think through to the richest man currently. He started his job, he actually started Amazon after leaving his lucrative job that he had. And I can say it's never too late to venture into entrepreneurship. Even when we again look at him, the richest man again from Amazon. I know most of us actually know him, that's why I'm not referring him by his name. He graduated first class in computer science. But all of us, we have heard stories that the smart people are not risk takers. Smart people cannot start anything, but this serves to defy that. Let me conclude this by bringing this even very close at home. When Zimbabwe got independent, probably in the early 80s and early 90s, people remember that in this country we had several businessmen we had fleets of buses. They were quite successful, and we really admired and aspired to be like them. But when we talk about 40 years later today, how many of those fleets do we really see today? What happened? So this afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, we want to speak to key skills that requires an entrepreneur. Firstly, how do you identify an opportunity? Secondly, after identifying that opportunity, how do you grow and scale up a business? And lastly, how do you make sure that your business is sustainable so that it can actually live after you? And to unpack this topic that we have today about the key skills that entrepreneurs require, we have got the founder of ABC, Shingi, joining us and leading this discussion this afternoon. Shingi, good afternoon and a warm welcome. Do you remember these buses that I'm talking about?
Yes. Thank you so much, Blesmo.
It's a pleasure to have you. You can proceed to introduce our guest.
All right. Very well. Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon to our panelists. Like Blesmo has highlighted, we have a very exciting discussion ahead of us. And I'm sure all the things he was mentioning, including those buses, are things we have all thought about and wondered about. So what I'm going to do is to introduce our panelists this afternoon. I will do so by also asking them our theme topic, our theme question, which is, are entrepreneurs born or are they made? So I will start with introducing Professor Rangazinyemba. He is the Vice Chancellor of the Catholic University of Zimbabwe. Professor Zinyemba, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
How are you this afternoon?
Very well, Shingi. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Good to have you here. And my first question to you is, are entrepreneurs born or are they made?
Thank you, Shingi. I am a traditional storyteller, so I'll tell a little story to illustrate what I am going to talk about. When I was growing up in a remote village in Gutu in Zimbabwe, I realized that life in the village circulated generally along the seasons. And what would happen is that when the rain season came, every family would get ready to till their fields, plant their seeds, go through the entire period, the agricultural period, and then up to harvest and storage of grain. But there were 3 households that were different. They would do everything else like everybody else, but somehow they did something extra. One of them was into cattle feeding and then sending the fattened cattle to market. The other was running a general dealership in the village. And the third was into market gardening. So I realized that those who grew up in these families had a knack for extra business. And it wasn't until later that I realized that these people were actually entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs understood to mean people who engage in an enterprise, usually with quite a lot of initiative and risk. And these people would then go beyond the normal routine existence. And they did have things that were envied in the village. They would have some extra money, for instance. But some of the kids who grew up in those families who did not like what was happening did not continue doing that when they were now on their own. So in my view, this is actually what's happening everywhere else. In our daily routine now, in the modern world, we see people who are content with going to their normal duties, days, job, etc., go back home, and that's the end of the day. Whereas there are others who go a little extra, start something new beyond what they normally do. And in Zimbabwe, we've come to see these people as entrepreneurs, and we see them as people who have chosen to do that. In Zimbabwe and in other economies which are not stable, it's really not so much out of passion or choice, but as a sheer survival instinct. So in my view, I think a lot happens when you grow up in an environment which is geared towards entrepreneurship, but you need to cultivate it. So the simple answer after the long winding is, I think it's both.
It's both. Okay, so Professor Zinyama's view is that it's both, and he has brought in an interesting aspect of some becoming entrepreneurs out of necessity and others actually just having the drive to want to become better than and to do better than what they're seeing around them in their environment. So just to mention, this webinar this afternoon is in partnership with Catholic University and E4 Impact Foundation. So you will find that as I introduce our panelists this afternoon, there will be indications of people from both the Catholic University as well as the E4 Impact Foundation and Bank ABC. So having said that, Bertha, I'm going to move over to you. And Bertha is the E4 Impact Southern Africa regional manager. And she also has quite a bit of a background in training and mentorship. So as an entrepreneur yourself, would you say entrepreneurs are born or are they made? So Bertha, I think you're on mute. We can't hear you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Shingi, and thank you for joining us. I wake up every morning to, shall I say, nurture people with potential to become entrepreneurs. So I'm definitely for, yes, entrepreneurs can be made. I work with a great team from E4 Impact and Catholic University here in Zimbabwe and across Southern Africa to nurture people with great potential to become entrepreneur. No time saying great potential. So definitely, I would want to mention that a while back, I read an article about the nature and nurture argument on this question of are entrepreneurs made or born? And I do believe that if you, at this moment, think of that entrepreneur that rocks your world, if I may use those words, or the entrepreneur that makes you, excited. They mention traits that are associated with entrepreneurs that are born, and that is high fluidity. These are people who are able to, they're high openness, and these are people who have moderate agreeableness. So you find that there are people who are imaginative, very high imaginative, very creative, very liberal in their approach, artistic, and very curious and interested in a lot of things. They have medium emotional matureness. You find they are very emotional people. I like watching Shark Tank, Dragon Tank, and I'm always fascinated in how the tears are always at the edge. You know, as the minute they're asked, how did you come up with this idea? The tears start flowing, so passion. They're adventurous, and their intellectual capacity is in such a way that it is able to navigate novel problems. It's able to respond, come up with solutions to novel problems very fast. So a lot of traits that I've mentioned there about the natural entrepreneur, so that high fluidity, their intelligence is flexible, and they understand abstract relationships. So we then have a situation where you have people with great potential to look at their traits, these traits that I've mentioned, and nurture them to become entrepreneurs of note. So I personally think it's possible to understand the traits that you have versus the nature argument, and nurture yourself and make yourself a great entrepreneur.
Okay, so I would say that Bertha is also inclined on the notion that they can be made. Also from E4 Impact, I'll move over to Professor Guggins. Professor Guggins, how are you this afternoon? Or
Very
is
good.
it morning?
It's early morning for me. The sun is just coming up.
Good morning. I hope we didn't wake you up too early today.
No, I'm an early riser, so this is a good time for me.
Thank you for joining us. Professor Guggins is joining us from the United States. And what is your take on are entrepreneurs born or are they made?
Well, I guess like everybody else, I'll be a little wishy-washy and say both. But it's an interesting question that those of us who have spent any time in entrepreneurship talk about all the time, because it is a little bit of both. I'm a fellow at Babson College here in Boston, and we one of the few universities that was founded for entrepreneurs, by entrepreneurs, and the whole student body comes there because of entrepreneurship. And even after having seen much of that, and having through E4 Impact, we're now in 18 countries in Africa, and I've been teaching here for about 9 years in 5 different countries. And I clearly one of the things I see is that there are so many entrepreneurs just go out onto the streets, and you see people who are entrepreneurs, some of them because of survival, some of them because of natural instincts or whatever. But I do think that I do see and I would come down strongly on, we can make entrepreneurs because we're doing it, and we've seen that many times. However, I think there are certain personality types. For example, I've had many people work for me who need to be told what to do. They're very good at what they do. They know how to manage, but don't get outside of that box too far, or they feel nervous or ill-equipped. And entrepreneurs, of course, love disruption, embrace disruption. They love uncertainty. And of course, in the COVID-19 era, this is sort of made for entrepreneurs, I think. So I think maybe the question for me is more important. What makes successful entrepreneurs? So there are many, many people out there who are entrepreneurs, but what really makes successful entrepreneurs? And from my experience, I could think of a few things that I would bring up. And what I look for, and I think what investors oftentimes look for in entrepreneurs, the passion. Are they passionate? Do they have passion for what they're doing? So the more passion there is, the more I'm attracted to that entrepreneur, because that's going to get them through the difficult times or whatever. The other side of that, however, is a discipline. I am so impressed by how disciplined entrepreneurs are, and in a sense, they have to be. As we know, business is a very competitive environment. You're competing against so many things, and there's so many pieces of this that you have to do. So you have to be very, very disciplined to do that. And I think good entrepreneurs look at that. And then I'd say, lastly, I think the issue of competencies. How sometimes at E4Impact we say, I would like to close the gap between you as the entrepreneur and you as the successful entrepreneur, because we know in business, so many businesses fail, after 2, 3, 4 years, the vast majority. So how can we increase your success as an entrepreneur? What are the skills and competencies? And maybe we can talk a little bit later about that, but I think those are the things that that I think about this as we go along.
Okay, thank you, Professor Perkins. And I think you have brought up one of the key things that we are looking to unpack today, which is what are those competencies and how can someone then get them? I would like to move over to introduce Oliver. Oliver is the Bank ABC country head for business banking. Oliver, from the finance world, what would you say?
Thank you, Shingi, and good afternoon to everyone. I'm afraid I'm also not going to take sides. I believe it's a little bit of both, and successful entrepreneurs, like Prof said, have got a bit of a cocktail on all sides. So we have got so many events and activities that take place, and talent is also included. So for me, I look at any person on this planet, surely I believe everyone is in it to become an entrepreneur. Some, of course, we say are born, maybe because they are born in a family of business people. If you look at an example of successful businesses, your Jewish people, your Indians, if you look at those people who are born in those businesses, normally we actually go and say they are very successful. Or maybe one is actually tempted and say they are successful because it's hereditary. It comes from genes. So in some cases, we say, yes, they have been successful because of their parents, because of what they have seen in the families. But I also take the other side, like everyone has said, on the other hand, and we know most people are educated, they have got their natural talents and skills, and they are gifted from God. So if you bring it a bit closer to banking, from our experience and what we deal with on a daily basis, we have seen that, like Prof has been mentioning, successful entrepreneurs are always those individuals who aim to achieve what everyone else has not, considered possible, or that passion and dedication that will go and change or bring impact to our society. So if you look at all that and combine with the talent, inborn talent, you see that these people eventually, the successful ones, because that's what interests us today. We have got young participants here, and they want to know if they are born or they are made. But eventually, say you are born or made, if you are successful, and if you are able to lead and take a position in any business. So that's my take, Shingi.
All right, thank you so much, Oliver. And I like what Oliver has said. I think it will definitely encourage all of us here, just combining it with what we've heard from all the panelists so far. It literally means that all of us have an opportunity to take the step to become an entrepreneur. The question then is, what do you really need in terms of skills, which is what we're discussing today, as well as other environmental factors that may play a part to make you a successful entrepreneur. So I'll end our round of introductions by introducing an entrepreneur himself. Wisdom Kakaka is the co-founder and MD of Cyrex Branding and Cyrex Business Centers. Wisdom, you have been an entrepreneur for a number of years now. Would you say you were just born that way, or were there certain things that you managed to cultivate and nurture that you already had or that you acquired to enable you to become an entrepreneur?
Thanks, Modi. I would say that for me, entrepreneurship is something that I was exposed to from a very young age. My dad was an entrepreneur, my mom was an entrepreneur. And growing up, I could see how they would see opportunity and seize opportunity, right? And then, so what would happen was, you know, school holidays, I'd be working for my dad, and I would see him interacting with other people. So I was sort of nurtured into the idea of business and enterprise. Growing up, then starting a business, I then realized that there are other skills that are required in order for an enterprise to actually exist. Those are the things that I then learned, you know, your product, pricing, placement, promotion, things like that, that actually make an organization viable. You know, the commercial viability of something makes something valuable to society. Identifying the product is critical because ultimately, you know, we can't speak of entrepreneurship if you don't have a viable product, you know. So research, development, etc. I think are key things that any entrepreneur should consider when starting an enterprise.
Okay, so still to answer my question though, would you say they're made or they're born?
I think they're in two parts. Some entrepreneurs are born, and you can tell them easily because they're very obsessive, they're very somewhat awkward to society. The things that they see, others don't see, and they are very dedicated to their cause, with or without your support, right? Some luckily are obsessed with things that are desired by society and they become very successful. Others, you know, go into oblivion, you see. But I think ultimately the others that you will find in society are the ones that learn the processes and create very good products that, you know, make sense. You know, they identify what is required and they become very successful. So I think it's in two parts. They're born and made.
Okay, so I think we do have a consensus here from all the panelists, and as our discussion continues, maybe things will become a lot more clearer. We'll see where we are by the end of the session. I'll just highlight for the participants, please use the chat functionality. Some of you are already doing it, but please do use it to send through your questions, send through your comments, and let's have an engaging session. So Wisdom, while I'm still on you, I will actually ask you ask you to begin our next round of questions, which is around something you just mentioned now, that there were certain skills that you realized that you would need. What exactly are these? What skills did you acquire prior? And then which ones did you acquire along the way?
I would say the skills that I acquired prior, you know, were actually professionalism. You know, I worked for a number of companies, and I think employment is important, first and foremost, because you learn structures, you learn the workings of a business. So I think that's very important. I think everyone at some point needs to be employed. You know, even if you are a born entrepreneur, it's important to be under a structure or under an organizational format that shows you the different sections of business, your HR, your marketing, your finance, etc. You know, so all those things I learned while working for various organizations. After that, you know, when I started business, I had to learn very quickly marketing and networking, which are very important because if people don't know you or your product, you know, you literally, you know, creating something that is literally for yourself. So I think besides having a product, having that marketing aspect is critical in having a viable business. And beyond that, I would say creating an organization and team efforts and knowing what you're good at and what you're not good at. You know, delegation and separation of tasks and things like that are critical in the success of any business.
Okay, thank you for those insights. A number of things that you have brought up there that I think we'll touch on as we go along. But for now, Oliver, I would like to ask you, everyone has spoken about, obviously, one does need to first have an idea. There are a lot of young people out there, well, any age really, they have great ideas, they've got the passion to drive them, they've got infectious leadership and charisma. But in terms of investor confidence, what skills do financial institutions look out for?
Thank you. So you have said it yourself. All the things that you mentioned are very important. But for us, when you come and you have a great idea, we want to understand that idea. If we are to be your partner, your banking partner, the bank that will take you from the inception, where you are now, and to your dream goal, we need to understand everything that you are thinking. We put it together. Obviously, there are so many platforms. There's a lot of paperwork involved, but we do have a number of questions. And I was going through what we do and some of the SMEs that have been successful from setup. And there are a few things that I realized are very critical, the things that you cannot do without. As long as you have an idea, most people make a mistake and believe that the next thing they would want is funding from a bank and they want to grow very fast, which is a mistake. So I would say, know what you want first. Maybe it's not funding. Maybe you need to restructure your business. Maybe you need a little bit support from other partners. But the question that we ask if you come to us, what is your product? What is your market? Do you have a taker for your market? And then we look at the potential cash flows that you think you get out of there. If you are certain that or if we work together and we realize that for sure what you need is capital, and then we'll take you through the process. Recently, by the way, we opened a hub, and this is meant for this kind of entrepreneurs. We are going to nurture them and try to understand and give them the platform to actually think of ideas and create markets. So it's much, much easier, as most people believe. If you come through and you have got the banker that will take you through the process. So I would say in a nutshell, those are some of the characteristics that we look at if you come through the bank.
Okay, thank you for highlighting that. And it looks like you have brought out, and this has also come out as the conversation has been going on, that there are certain skills, usually referred to as soft skills, that are clearly playing an important role in the nurturing and the development of entrepreneurs. Professor Zinyamba, with regards to these soft skills, that's the non-technical skills that relate to probably how we work. Which ones would you say are the most key that as people embark on their self-development journey, while they are trying to start their entrepreneurial journey, which ones should they actually develop?
Thank you, Shengi. I think I would summarize them in one word, really, emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
And the key 5 attributes of emotional intelligence are self-awareness, very much what Oliver has been talking about. How well do you know yourself? How well do you know your interests? What is it that drives you as a person? And if you were to engage in business, what is it that you would want to do? So that would be the first one. The second one would be self-regulation. Self-regulation in this case would mean looking at what drives you and saying, is this what I need for my passion? Do I run away with it this way, or do I regulate myself in such a way that I know exactly what it is that I want? The third one is motivation. Motivation being interested in what you want to do for its own sake, not because your neighbor is doing the same thing.
Yes.
And not because you see that's where the money is. Are you motivated to do what you want to do for its own sake? Because that's where your passion lies. And the fourth one would be empathy. Once you have started, I would say the first 3, self-awareness, self-regulation, motivation, would be those that you cultivate as you begin the idea of getting into your enterprise. But once you are in, there are 2 others that I think are crucial, and I think some of the panelists have already talked about them. One is empathy, understanding where others are at. If I were in that same position, would I want to be treated this way? Got clients, for instance, and the situation suddenly turns topsy-turvy as it is in Zimbabwe. Do you then hit your clients just because they are vulnerable to you? Or you don't look at their own situation and say, if I were in that situation, if I were to have someone else do this to me, that would drive me under. And the last one is social skill. Networking, absolutely key. Being able to network with other people, other businesses, those that you need and those that you will learn from. And team leading, team building, working with teams. These are absolutely crucial. So emotional intelligence would entail that one looks at those 5 key attributes and say, how do I cultivate them pre-entering business and post-entering business? Let me just answer something that came up very quickly from one of the panelists, one of the people listening, saying we need to make a difference between entrepreneur, self-employed, businessmen. The general definition of entrepreneur, in my view, is a person who organizes and manages any enterprise, especially a business, usually with a considerable risk and initiative. So it is quite possible that within what Wisdom was talking about, learning from existing structures, being employed and learning from those structures, marketing, HR, etc., one can actually be an entrepreneur within existing businesses. Then we talk about intrapreneurship. So that would be a learning ground before one then can become self-employed, so to speak, as we say so much in Zimbabwe, and becoming a business person.
Thank you so much for addressing that as well. So I think it is coming out quite clear that people start from different places. Some may start within someone else's organization and use it as a learning ground. Others are born in an environment where they can actually pick up these skills or even get motivated to pick up the passion. But then there are certain skills that we need to acquire and cultivate to be able to succeed. And I'm glad you also brought up networking. Networking is a soft skill that's actually quite important, but many people seem to struggle with it. For example, we have a chat option here, we have a gathering here, but very few people are actually making use of the chat to introduce themselves and, you know, reach out and be known so that other people can also reach out to them. So Bertha, my question to you is, does who you know matter as much as what you know? How can one actually acquire this skill to be able to network and build up on it?
Right, thank you. Definitely where I'll start from is where the rector has, you need to know what you want to put out there. You need to be self-aware. You need to self-aware as a person and be genuine, to be open, that openness that I was talking about in the nature argument. So it's very important to understand that I have a limit and my learning experience is endless. So when you get into in any environment, you are willing to open yourself to anyone who's there and appreciate what they have to share with you. So you start from there. You know, the beauty of how young kids come up to you and say, you know, that's, you know, they're curious to understand, who are you? Because you know, at that stage, they feel they know who they are and they want to share themselves with you. So I think you start with being self-aware and genuine and authentic to the fact that you are open to learning and you are open to meeting people who are willing to assist you where you need help. So understanding your strengths and weaknesses, your gaps, I think as Prof. Googins had said, that now you've established that I'm an entrepreneur, but what makes me a successful entrepreneur, and where do I get, and what is it that I'm lacking, and where do I get it from? So I always say to people, then it's a case where you open up yourself and you find spaces where you get that information you need to fill those gaps. So naturally, for a business person, what I always say is, whatever industry you're in, start with your association. You meet many people who are complaining about the policies, they are complaining about the market situation, they're complaining about this and complaining about this. And I think one of the first people who mentored me, Mrs. Ndlubula, she said to me, are you part of any association of your industry? And I said, no. Are you part of any business member organization that lobbies for an ecosystem or an environment for you to thrive as an entrepreneur? No. So already there you are seeing that you are not in a space to expose what is it that you want to do in your enterprise, and you then need to build that network and also understand what you need from it. So I think it's very important to start with yourself and then be clear what exactly that you need to cover and who to get it from. Those three elements. And then I think anywhere where you go, you can sit in a coffee, you can walk down the street, you'll be able to meet someone and say, oh, hello, and strike a conversation that might be able to assist you in the future.
Okay, thank you for that insight as well. Professor Googins, you being based over on the other side of the world, while we're looking at people spreading their wings, like Bertha was talking about, one spreading their reach by some global competencies that local entrepreneurs here would need to start developing or to acquire and nurture in order for them to seize the opportunities that are presented by globalization and technology today.
Yeah, I mean, when I think of entrepreneurs, I think of a world of opportunity. I think of, I love that saying of the management guru, Peter Drucker, behind every global social and environmental issue as a business opportunity in disguise. And that's how I generally think of entrepreneurs. And I think entrepreneurs have sort of almost two parts of the brain. You know, one part is what makes them entrepreneurs, which is, as Wisdom was saying, you know, someone who can see things a little bit differently, someone who has a curiosity, etc., to be able to come up with a value proposition for a new business or for an operating business. But that's only one part of the brain, because the other part is you've got to deliver on that vision. You've got to deliver on that idea. And that's back to very solid business ideas. So I think of what I've seen, no matter whether I'm doing, right now I'm doing a course in Pakistan. And so now I have another sort of point of interest of what is there much difference across the globe, whether it's developed, whatever? No, not really. There's a basic set of skills and competencies. For example, take the issue of communications, you know, and I think, you know, how do you communicate? I've seen a lot of people, a lot of entrepreneurs who have some very good ideas for a business, but they can't communicate that. So they don't understand how important, you know, it is to develop your communication skills. Or take something that we haven't even talked about yet, which is at the core of all of this, which are financials. I mean, the language of business is basically numbers. It's basically, you know, does this work from a numbers point of view, profit, loss, etc. A lot of entrepreneurs are more in the realm of having the idea, but not having the real skills and competencies. If I don't have my financial skills, I'm not going to survive. I'm not going to have a business. You might have a great idea, but how do I do that? So that's a sort of a second area. I think the third thing I look at is I see a flexibility, an ability to adapt to this crazy environments that we're living in today. The world is upside down right now. That's not anything new. But people who can adapt to that, I think, become quite clear. So in some ways, it begins with understanding yourself. That's one of the things I think I've learned in my 10 years here in Africa, more than I had back in the United States, is that you've got to really focus on understanding who you are. You know, I gave the example when I started teaching, I had an idea of it, but it took me about 3 years to really feel comfortable and understanding, giving my voice. If an entrepreneur has to find their voice and has to understand all the different components of this, the soft side and the hard side. And that's why it's so challenging. So there are, again, let me just stop there because we'll have some discussion on that.
Okay. Well, thank you. Some good insight there, but one thing that's strongly coming out is definitely the issue of self-awareness. And Wisdom, I'm just going to come back to you now. We know that the world has been shaken by a pandemic, and it has affected businesses and individuals alike. And just looking at your own business and your team's competencies, what would you say were the survival skills that helped you keep your business afloat and actually even thrive in this environment?
All right. So the interesting thing is that, you know, growing up, we've been taught to build businesses to last, you know, and that's been great up until 2020. You know, now we're building businesses to adapt and change. You know, so much is happening, and every part of the team has to be flexible. You know, every part of the team has to be elastic. So it's the ability to learn new things and unlearn old things. You know, the way we do business has to change. The way we see opportunity has to change. You know, the new skills that are available to everyone. We're now in an information age where to become better, you have to expose yourself constantly and consistently. So the key skills that we've ingrained in our team is that continuous learning, you know, and it has to be a culture that is cultivated within the organization, because in our industry, we have to adapt all the time. We have to be ahead of the market, ahead of our clients, especially in the branding and signage space, where customers are looking for new ways to market their product. We have to be ahead of them in order to create the new opportunities and the new ways of doing business for them. So it's something that we consistently reiterate within our organization, and just to teach our team that there are so many things that are replacing, the human element. Technology is taking over so many things. We're going digital. So where something was manual, it's now electronic. So it's replacing you. But in order for you to become a part of that same system, you have to continuously learn. So it's something that we definitely have ingrained within our system.
Okay, learning and unlearning, something very important, I think, generally in life, but more so in business. I see we are running out of time. We had so much to speak about, but maybe in the remaining few minutes that we have, I will just touch on more on the practical side of the how. How can people actually get access to these skills? How can they actually learn, find places where they learn the skills that they need or the things that they need to be successful entrepreneurs? So Oliver, you spoke a bit about the bank having an SME hub now. And what could you tell us a bit more about that, and in what way the bank is actually playing a role in nurturing future and current business owners and developing their implementation skills? How does one actually join that SME community?
Thank you, Shingi. So what has been discussed here, we have been thinking about this discussion for almost the past 2 years. There has been a gap and a big gap. So it's also true from our experience. We have seen that businesses, especially startups and entrepreneurs, they start today, they have a brilliant idea, but it's only a few months, a few weeks, and all goes away. So that's how the hub was born. And when it was launched in March, the sole mandate from our CEO was to handhold these entrepreneurs, to say, what is it that you need? You need a working space. Maybe you're working from your home, from a garage. Come at the hub. We'll give you Wi-Fi, free Wi-Fi. We'll give you a private office. Refine your idea. Find yourself, what we are talking about just now. And then we also come in with our teams to try and help with ideas in terms of networking, in terms of marketing, those opportunities, the future skills, the future markets, so that you are not on your own. You have got a partner in the form of a bank. And that though it was affected by COVID, it's now happening virtually. Our marketing has actually started a networking platform where someone can sell and buy virtually on our Facebook page. So those are some of the things that we are trying to do to help them and bring them closer. One as a community, and obviously to try and help with their growth. So yeah, what does it take to join the hub? Not much. You just come with your brilliant idea. We will have a team close by. It works like a branch. You can have access to anything. One thing that we have, and we've seen that has worked for most of these entrepreneurs, it's a simple account to start with. So we call it an iGnite account. You only need your ID, you need your proof of idea or whatever you are working on, if you have got something that you are working on already, and you get access to all our banking products in terms of business. So it's only a phone call. If you are in Harare, you can actually come through. We are at the Heritage House on 7th floor, and start learning about banking and how we can support you. So in a nutshell, I think that's what I would say about the hub.
Thank you. Exciting stuff that is happening there. And Bertha, I'm just going to jump back to you quickly because I know that also from the training point of view, the academic training as well point of view, E4 Impact together with Catholic universities also has a very exciting program that is enabling those that are aspiring to be entrepreneurs to find a place where they can actually get both the training as well as even develop themselves. Could you tell us a bit more about what E4 Impact together with Catholic University of Zimbabwe is doing to actually prepare business owners?
Great, thank you. So as E4 Impact's vision is to grow a large alliance of partners in developing impact entrepreneurs. And we're excited that 2019 here in Zimbabwe, our first edition came up, MBA edition, was launched with Catholic University. So we've got over nearly 50 entrepreneurs that are in the program, and we are pushing to grow skills in them. Some came in at idea stage, some are startup within 6 months, a year old, some are at growth stage. So we are working with entrepreneurs at different levels where we are zeroing in on those gaps and improving those competences that were mentioned by Prof. Goggins. We are also working on those traits that were spoken of by the rector. We are also working to create the next wisdom in the industry. So we are working on, we have a curriculum at MBA level, at certificate level, and accelerator level in all the 18 countries we are working in. And we have, our aim is always to forge partnerships to be able to leverage off our strengths and competencies that we have. Hence, this platform that we are on with Bank ABC, understanding that the key thing we drive in our curriculum is, as Prof. Goggins said, is financial understanding and literacy, and being able to communicate yourself financial. In our program, we have 4 boot camps that focus on finance, that focus on your business model, that focus on your marketing model, and how to document all that effectively. I believe if you are to walk into any financial institution, you need to be a confident, financially literate person, and it's something that we push, and we push our participants to practice. So the coming up, the hub, iGnite hub, is definitely a partnership that we value, because in hubs you get to be practical. It's a model that allows you to come in and say, you know what, I've been certified at Catholic University. I do know about entrepreneurship. I'm literate about marketing. I'm literate about finance and my product development. I've tested it in the market, and I've done my design thinking process, and I now need the support to scale this. So growth is so important. So we have faculty. I can see our faculty members here, Ibe from Mozambique. I can see our local faculties from Catholic University. They are all here, and we're just passionate to merge the international links like Prof. Goggins and the Pan-African links to create linkages in finance and marketing to build. So we've got programs definitely here in Zimbabwe and across Africa to be able to build the entrepreneur with impact in economic space, impact in the social space, and impact in our environment.
Thank you. So, guys, I think you've heard it. Unfortunately, we are running a little behind time now. There was so much more we wanted to glean from our panelists today. I think you can see they have a lot to share with us and a lot that would be able to benefit from. I'm just going to pick a couple of questions from the chat here. There's one from Rashton. Thank you, Rashton, for your question. And you say, in a big and structured business, there will be someone in charge of HR, another finance, another marketing. When I want to start a small business, how much of these functionalities should I learn? Should I first get an HR qualification so that I can manage employees well? Or should I first get a marketing qualification? I think Professor Googins, maybe I'll throw this one at you.
Well, my response to that is I don't think I could answer that question very well, because it would all depend on the nature of your business. That's one of the challenges, isn't it, of starting a business, is that you don't have a HR group, you don't have a sales group. You are it. You're the chief cook and bottle washer, as we say. And so that's part of the excitement and the challenge of trying to move an idea into a business. And so you're going to have to grow, in a sense, in order to have resources to be able to do that. So it really, you have a challenge in the beginning, is that you are unknown. You are an unknown quantity. You have to understand what type of capital I'm going to need to move ahead. But you know, I don't think you're going to take any specific courses, but you could go and ask yourself, well, where am I the most weak? And we just talked about the financial. We know that you can't go anyplace, you know, without having some financial reckoning. Mm-hmm. But I would suggest spending a lot of time really networking with other entrepreneurs and asking them, what was their experience? What did they learn? Because there's a lot of wisdom out there for people that have succeeded. And many of them, I think, are quite willing to do that. So I don't want to take too much time, but that's sort of my initial reaction.
Thank you. And funny you should say that, because I was actually going to ask Wisdom to just give us a brief snippet of when you started. Did you start with all those functions, or did you were you the guy in the middle of everything?
So when you're the founder or co-founder, you literally pretty much do everything, you know, and it's learning as you go. I say, you know, because you don't need to know everything at that time, but you just need to know enough to get through the month or next month, right? But it's important, again, as I said earlier, to have that continuous desire to learn. There's so many skills that are around you. That's why networking is absolutely important. You know, you have a friend that's an accountant. He can look at your books. You've got a friend that's in marketing or a graphic designer that can design your flyer for you. You've got a friend that can lend you a pickup truck to do your deliveries. And I think that's so important for entrepreneurs to be able to use their network around them. And as much as we always look out for funding, I think it's important to look around us first and use the resources that are available to us. You know, it makes a massive difference to be able to maximize on what you have with you, you know, before going to the bank for funds, because the bank also will invest in you if you've invested in yourself, you know, and yes. Most entrepreneurs, real entrepreneurs, you know, will invest in themselves so much before they seek that additional assistance. And it's good that there are initiatives like the iGnite SME Hub, which is awesome. I didn't have when starting my business, you know, but with such facilities, you have access to network with other people within the same space to catapult and, you know, drive your business forward.
Okay, thank you. And yes, as Oliver did also mention, you know, it's not all about the money. So I'm going to ask Professor Zinyemba to take our last question, which is, what tips can you share on keeping the correct mindset with all the craziness and bad news in the world right now? And that's coming from Annabelle. Thank you, Annabelle, for your question.
Thank you, Shingi. It is indeed a crazy world. And I was listening to CNN last night, and they were highlighting how mental health issues have really come to the fore now because of the craziness around us. I would say one of the ways really is to go back to emotional intelligence. self-awareness, which we've been talking about a lot. How much of this can I take as an individual? I now limit myself in terms of listening to news to perhaps one big news session a day, and do some bit of reading around it and around what's happening, but knowing that I have very little control over what's happening out there and remaining positive. What Wisdom was talking about in terms of networking, being in touch with others, that really helps because you hear from others how they feel, how they are taking it, and they also learn from you how you are surviving. But it would be remiss of me, being rector of a Catholic university, not to refer to something which I think is absolutely key, particularly in stressed situations like in Zimbabwe. There's a very telling verse in the Bible which says, "For what shall it profit a man if he wins the whole world and yet lose his soul?" I have seen families that have been destroyed when particularly the husband or the man earner in the family, whether it's the wife or the husband, has taken issues of survival and running a business to the point where it destroys everything else that is dear in the family. Yes. Where there's no life anymore because everything is geared towards making money. Yes, it's important to make money, as Prof. Gubins was saying. You need the baseline. The bottom line is important, but there are other values that we should keep, we should preserve, and those values will assist us to survive the craziness that we see in our world.
Thank you so much. Some very important words there. And I think that will be our last question for today, but there have been so many takeaways and a lot that we can say we can start to apply. E4 Impact, together with Bank ABC, as you can see, are actually creating an ecosystem that all of us can benefit from. As was said earlier and throughout the discussion, there is no one who cannot become an entrepreneur. The issue is just making sure that we cultivate. Firstly, we identify our ideas, and we have we know ourselves better and actually know what we're passionate about, what we're interested in, and cultivate certain skills that will enable us to not just be business people or entrepreneurs or people who start businesses and take risks, but actually people who are successful and have an impact in our society. So I'm sure the information on how one can be able to join both the hub as well as the MBA program will be made available in the chat there. So please take note of those. And for those of you who are looking to start your business venture, I hope you've been encouraged and have been given a bit of clarity as to how you can, what steps you can actually start taking in terms of developing yourself to become a successful business person. I just want to thank our panelists. And with that, I think Blessmore, I'll hand over back to you.
Let me also take this opportunity to thank our panelists for this afternoon. Professor Hogan's wisdom, as well as a quickly touch point that Wisdom mentioned, that to say, for me, one critical thing for an entrepreneur is to unlearn. When you start a business, there's something that you believe in, but as you grow your business, you definitely have to unlearn so that you can learn new things on how to grow your business. As Bank ABC, we are there for you throughout the business cycle in terms of when you are starting an idea, that's when you can come through the hub. When you look at growing your business, that's when you can come through our business banking or SME banking, which is there to grow your business. When you grow into a bigger company, we're again available for you through our corporate and investment banking. So throughout the whole business cycle, Bank ABC be there for you. I was also quite encouraged. I saw a lot of people posting their businesses and also advertising their businesses within the chat box. May I also invite everyone again to post their business on a permanent platform that we have, which is called the iGnite Marketplace. If you go on Facebook, you simply search for the right marketplace and be able to reach out to customers out there. Just as well, it's not only selling, but when you're selling, also when you want something, go on the marketplace so that you can reciprocate your fellow entrepreneurs. Otherwise, what's left for me is to thank everyone for coming through and to wish everyone a pleasant afternoon. Thank you.